Audra and Claire declare an armistice. Daniel accuses Sharon of interfering. Today on Young and Restless, Sharon quizzes Daniel about Tessa, Phyllis and Kane trade pitfalls, and Claire and Kyle clear the air. Billy and Sally's talk ended with a surprise, and Victoria bothered Nick's burning through anodynes. Daniel runs into Sharon at Crimson Lights and asks after Mariah. They talk about how she's still struggling. Sharon thinks she needs her woman and child to help heal. They bandy the hijacking and how dominated by depression Mariah is. Daniel knows what that's like. Sharon repeats that her son needs to lean on Tessa. She asks if he's further than musketeers with her son's woman. This is making him uncomfortable. He says they both fought against it being further than fellowship. Sharon can understand Tessa filing for divorce and turning to him, but she still wants to believe her son's marriage has a chance. They argue about how long Tessa should have to sit around and stay for her woman. He says he's not the problem and doesn't want to be in the middle of this. He accuses Sharon of trying to get him to back off. Daniel leaves and Noah arrives. He exchanges with his mama, who worries he left Sienna alone nearly. They worry about not hearing from Nick all day. They talk about what a curse mat is and assume Nick is looking for him. She says they need to do nothing and trust his pater. Tessa runs into Sienna at the Chancellor Park Cafe. She's surprised to see her back. Sienna is surprised to be there. She realized she wouldn't be suitable to move on from Matt in LA. They sputter about how great Noah is. Sienna is nearly starting to believe she could have a happily ever after. She asks how effects are with Mariah. Tessa doesn't suppose they will have a puck-tail ending. Sienna asks for details. Tessa doesn't want to be angry. She knows her woman is in a lot of pain. Too important has changed and she doesn't suppose she and Mariah will ever be happy again. She and Arya and Mariah were happy formerly, but there's no going back. She was pushed down and can't stay in limbo. They laugh about how Tessa used to date Noah. Tessa wants him to be happy and is glad he set up Sienna. Sienna admits she's not trusting her judgment after dating Matt. Tessa urges her not to turn down from a good thing. Daniel shows up and gets an preface. Sienna is surprised to hear he's affiliated to Noah too. They talk about his music and Sienna wants to hear it. Sienna explains she and Noah will be opening another shadow room in City. Daniel says she'll have to hire Tessa. Sienna can see they've chemistry. Claire is startled when Audra opens the door for her at Society. Audra declares the feud between them last time. Claire isn't buying this and sure she's trying to throw her off her game. Audra thinks they should stay neutral. Claire claims she no longer cares about what happened in LA and won't be pursuing it. Indeed, if she knows there's more. They wish each other luck and agree to an armistice. Audra asks if she's not seeing Holden. Claire says he's been lying to her. That doesn't sound like deal swell to Audra. She assumes Claire was just chasing after Kyle's contrary and suggests she only got close to him to get dirt on her. Claire claims she doesn't date with Docket. Holden wouldn't give her the verity, so she's moving on. They repeat that they're both moving on to live conflict-free. I'm done with both of you, Claire declares. Kyle arrives and Claire tells Audra to have a lovely day. She and Kyle get a table. Holden arrives and Audra incontinently tells him Claire is back with Kyle. He's not surprised. Audra says Claire has verified she's backing off. He notices she doesn't like seeing Claire with Kyle. Holden suggests they be honest so they can both get what they want. At a table, Claire tells Kyle that she's done with Holden and has called an armistice with Audra. She hopes he's not disappointed. He says Audra isn't worth their energy. He'd like them to see further of each other. It's a date, she says. Kane stops by the Newman office and reminds her of his request that they work together. She's sure Lily and the kiddies are in no peril and they can't wisecrack him. He suggests they move in stages and give Chancellor back to the Newmans. She doesn't suppose Victor will go for that. He says they can do this and also go back on the deal. She admits her contract with Billy isn't done. Kane begs. She says that this will destroy Billy. His collateral damage, Kane says. They dispute about Billy. Kane tells her she's only in her position because of him and she betrayed him. None of this means anything to her. He offers undying gratefulness. That's not good enough. She doesn't want any IOUs. Kane claims he has commodity she wants poorly. Phyllis doubts he has anything to offer. He offers to talk to her son for her. She'll agree to a deal if he can get her son to forgive her. On his train, Kane calls Daniel and tells him he has an idea of how to turn effects around. Back in the domain, Daniel asks Tessa how she's holding up. She admits she's not. They arrange to meet latterly to talk about it. She kisses him. Once he leaves, Sienna comes out and says it's egregious that Daniel has fallen for her. On his train, Kane calls Phyllis and tells her to set the deal in stir. He's confident he can talk her son around. Rolling her eyes, she says when he's made real advance, he can call back so they can start the deal to get Lily back. On Moment's emotionally concentrated occasion of the young and the restless, armistices were declared, reservations were burned, and old injuries were ripped open again as nearly every major player in Genoa City set up themselves standing at a crossroads. What began as putatively ordinary hassles at familiar hangouts like Crimson Lights and Society snappily entwined into charged competitions and fragile accommodations that could alter connections for months to come. At Crimson Lights, Sharon set up herself face-to-face with Daniel in a discussion that started politely but snappily shifted into commodity far more pointed. Sharon, ever defensive of her son Mariah, couldn't repel probing Daniel about his growing closeness to Tessa. The discussion carried the heavy shadow of Mariah's hijacking trauma and the depression that has continued to suffocate her spirit. Sharon forcefully believes that mending will only come if Mariah leans into her marriage and rebuilds her family unit with Tessa and little Aria. Yet Daniel's presence in Tessa's life complicates that stopgap. While Daniel claimed that his bond with Tessa evolved naturally out of collective pain and participated understanding, Sharon subtly indicted him of situating himself as a relief rather than a friend. The pressure rose when she suggested he step away for the sake of Mariah's fragile marriage. Daniel bristled, averring he no way pursued Tessa within docket and that he refuses to be painted as the villain. The discussion ended with Daniel criminating Sharon outright of trying to manipulate him into backing off. The fracture between them felt endless, especially as Daniel walked down frustrated and Sharon was left questioning whether she had just pushed him further toward Tessa rather of guarding her son's future. Moments latterly, Noah arrived, shifting the tone but not easing Sharon's worries. Their discussion snappily turned to Sienna and the moping fear that Nick might be out hunting for Matt again. Sharon's motherly anxiety extended beyond Mariah. She fears the cycle of peril no way truly ends for her children. The citation of Matt cast a dark pall over everything, buttressing the idea that Genoa City's youngish generation continues to pay the price for once vendettas. Meanwhile, at Chancellor Park Cafe, Tessa encountered Sienna in an unexpectedly candid exchange. Sienna admitted that leaving City hadn't freed her from Matt's shadow and that she realized she couldn't overrun undetermined passions by shifting to Los Angeles. Her vulnerability varied with Tessa's own admission that her marriage may be beyond form. Tessa conceded that while she understands Mariah's trauma, she can no longer live in emotional limbo. There was a time when she, Mariah, and Aria felt like a fairytale family, but too much has changed. The distance, the silence, the pain, it all accumulated into commodity that feels unrecoverable. Sienna, cautiously hopeful about her own love with Noah, commended that she fears her judgment after being blindsided by Matt. Tessa encouraged her not to sabotage commodity healthy out of fear, a bittersweet piece of advice given her own failing marriage. When Daniel arrived and joined their table, the dynamic subtly shifted again. Sienna observed the chemistry between him and Tessa incontinently. There was an ease between them, an implied understanding forged through participated grief and cultural sensibilities. When Tessa latterly kissed Daniel in the domain, it wasn't impulsive, it felt like a quiet rendition to passions both of them had tried to deny. Sienna, witnessing the moment from a distance, raised what numerous observers are allowing Daniel has easily fallen for her. The complication, of course, is that Mariah remains fairly and emotionally tethered to Tessa, and Sharon's before battle underscores that this situation is far from resolved. Across City at Society, another Cold War fused, at least on the face. Claire was visibly startled when Audra saluted her with an unanticipated offer of peace. Audra declared their feud old news, framing it as last time's drama. Claire remained cautious, suspecting ulterior motives, but eventually agreed to an armistice. Both women claimed to be moving on, Claire from Holden's deception and Audra from moping contest, but their polite grins slightly concealed deeper pressures. Audra snappily rotated the discussion to Claire's romantic snares, questioning whether her involvement with Holden had ever been genuine. Claire forcefully denied using him as a pawn against Kyle and claimed she doesn't date strategically. Her protestation that she's done with both of you carried weight, suggesting a newfound independence rather than bare romantic vacillation. When Kyle arrived moments latterly, Claire reiterated that she has ended affairs with Holden and established impartiality with Audra. Kyle, relieved and maybe still triumphant, suggested they concentrate on rebuilding their own connection. Their agreement to see further of each other suggested at conciliation, but given Genoa City's history, peace infrequently lasts. Audra's exchange with Holden after Claire left revealed another subcast of manipulation. Holden wasn't shocked to learn Claire gravitated back to Kyle, inferring he always suspected she was disaccorded. Audra's slightly concealed vexation at seeing Claire and Kyle together didn't escape Holden's notice. His suggestion that they be honest about what they want suggested a possible alliance, one that could reignite pressures despite the so-called truce. However, Claire and Kyle's reunion may soon face external sabotage if Audra and Holden decide to unite. At Newman Enterprises, power plays boosted as Kane approached Phyllis with a bold offer. Kane's despair to recapture control and budge himself as a rescuer for Lily drove him to negotiate in stages, indeed suggesting returning Chancellor Diligence to the Newmans temporarily to secure trust. Phyllis, ever skeptical, honored the threat incontinently, especially given her contractual scores with Billy. Kane dismissed Billy as contributory damage, a comment that struck a wimwams. Phyllis has betrayed and been betrayed numerous times, but she doesn't take kindly to being told her abettors are expendable. Kane tried emotional influence, reminding her that her current standing is incompletely due to him. Yet Phyllis refused to be swayed by gratefulness or vague pledges. Rather, she set a palpable condition: if Kane can repair her shattered relationship with Daniel, she'll consider aligning with him. It was a calculated move, blending motherly vulnerability with business strategy. Kane wasted no time, calling Daniel from his train with pledges of a plan to turn everything around. His confidence framed on arrogance, especially when he latterly instructed Phyllis to prepare the deal, certain he could move her son to forgive her. Phyllis's eye roll said it all. She's been burned too numerous times to trust Kane's bravado. Still, the possibility of conciliation with Daniel is a temptation she cannot ignore. Daniel, meanwhile, is emotionally entangled with Tessa and at odds with Sharon. However, the fallout could ripple through multiple families at formally, if Kane inserts himself into that unpredictable blend. Away, Victoria's concern over Nick's adding reliance on anodynes adds another turnabout of pressure. Though Nick didn't appear prominently in these scenes, his off-screen conduct impended large. The suggestion that he may be obsessively pursuing Matt while neglecting his own good reinforces the show's ongoing theme: undetermined trauma types, reckless opinions. Sharon's asseveration that they trust Nick reflects both faith and denial, faith in his defensive instincts and denial about the risk it's taking on him. The occasion closes with multiple vestments hanging precariously. Tessa and Daniel's growing closeness threatens to shatter Mariah's formerly fragile stability. Sharon's defensive instincts may inadvertently push Daniel closer to Tessa rather than down. Claire and Audra's armistice, though civil, feels temporary, especially with Holden potentially aligning with Audra. Kane's manipulative chess game pitfalls contributory damage across the Newman, Abbott, and Chancellor conglomerates. And Phyllis, caught between ambition and fatherhood, must decide whether she trusts Kane enough to go on her son's remission. In true youthful and the Restless fashion, no battle exists in insulation. Every argument, every armistice, every rumored deal connects to a larger web of fidelity, treason, and craving. Moment's occasion wasn't about explosive reveals or dramatic pokes, it was about strategic positioning and emotional chess. Characters declared peace while conniving intimately, offered remission while withholding trust, and claimed independence while drifting toward old patterns. The result is a stewing pressure that promises unborn eruptions. Genoa City may look calm on the face tonight, but beneath that stillness lies a storm gathering strength, one that will test marriages, alliances, and family bonds in ways no bone can completely anticipate. As the emotional temblors from earlier competitions continue to ripple through Genoa City, the fate of each discussion began settling into commodity heavier, more consequential. On the young and the restless, no armistice is ever just a armistice, no kiss is ever just a kiss, and no business offer comes without a retired blade put away neatly behind it. What unfolded after those charged exchanges was lower about immediate explosions and further about the quiet recalculations each character made once they were alone with their studies. After Daniel left Crimson Lights, the pressure from his battle with Sharon cleaved to him like a storm pall. Sharon's blameworthiness, that he was fitting himself into a fragile marriage, echoed in his mind long after the door closed behind him. Daniel has always seen himself as someone who stumbles into complicated situations rather than orchestrating them, but Sharon's words forced him to question whether propinquity alone can make someone reproachable. He knows what depression feels like. He's lived inside it. That participated understanding is what drew him to Tessa in the first place. Their bond wasn't forged in coyness but in vulnerability. And yet, vulnerability can be the most intimate ground of all. Sharon, fiercely defensive and deeply hysterical of losing her son's future happiness, may have unintentionally driven Daniel to double down on his connection with Tessa simply by challenging it. Back at the cafe, Sharon tried to recapture countenance in front of Noah, but her solicitude was insolvable to conceal. She's a mama first, and every decision she makes overflows from that identity. Her asseveration that they trust Nick's judgment regarding Matt felt rehearsed, nearly hopeless. Sharon has spent times watching the men in her life take dangerous pitfalls under the guise of protection. She knows how that story frequently ends. But she also knows that pushing too hard only widens cracks. So rather, she cleaved to sanguinity, indeed as mistrustfulness eroded at her. Meanwhile, Tessa's autumn discussion with Sienna dallied in her mind long after Daniel walked down from the domain. Confessing that she doesn't believe her marriage can return to what it formerly was both freeing and devastating. Tessa isn't angry at Mariah, she's exhausted. Living alongside someone drowning in trauma without being allowed to reach them has left her emotionally stranded. She remembers the warmth of family nights, the horse laugh, the participated dreams for Arya's future. Now, the house feels like a gallery of better days. And yet, despite all of that, guilt remains. Guilt for wanting further. Guilt for chancing comfort in Daniel's steady presence. Guilt for the kiss that felt ineluctable. Sienna, perceptive and honest, saw what Tessa and Daniel may still be trying to explain down. Chemistry isn't always loud. Occasionally it's the quiet graveness pulling two people closer until resistance feels futile. Sienna's own bruised heart made her observation sharper. Having misgauged Matt so deeply, she now questions every instinct. That's why she clings cautiously to her relationship with Noah, assaying every commerce for red flags that may not live. Tessa's stimulant to embrace commodity goods struck her deeply, because it came from someone laboriously floundering to hold on to what formerly was good. Across City at Society, Claire replayed her exchange with Audra as she sat across from Kyle. The armistice felt necessary, indeed empowering, but Claire isn't naive. She knows Audra thrives on strategy. Still, declaring herself done with both Holden and the contest-gestured commodity genuine, Claire is tired of being reactive. She doesn't want to be defined by who she's courting or who she's feuding with. When she told Kyle it's a date, it wasn't about reclaiming lost love so much as choosing stability over chaos. Kyle, for his part, sounded cautiously hopeful. He has made his share of impulsive romantic opinions, but there was a predicated sincerity in his request to see further of Claire. Audra, he said, isn't worth their energy. That statement was lower about dismissing Audra and further about refusing to let history triangles mandate present choices. Yet the irony is necessary. Audra was only a many bases down, formally assaying body language, formally calculating possibilities. When Holden joined Audra moments latterly, the air shifted again. He wasn't surprised Claire gravitated back to Kyle. In fact, he nearly sounded abnegated to it. But abdication doesn't equal incuriosity. Holden has always masked instability with bravado, and Audra knows how to exploit that. Their discussion about honesty was concentrated with recrimination. They both want commodity, confirmation, palm, perhaps indeed revenge. However, it won't be out of love. It'll be out of collective benefit, if they align. And in Genoa City, alliances formed from malignancy are frequently the most unpredictable. Over at Newman Enterprises, the power struggle between Kane and Phyllis continued stewing long after their original clash. Kane's amenability to label Billy as contributory damage revealed further than he probably intended. It exposed his despair. Once a man who flattered himself on fidelity, Kane now operates with Lair vision. Recovering influence and proving himself necessary to Lily has transcended everything differently. He sees cooperation with Phyllis as a stepping gravestone back to applicability.